Okay, to begin, I have the front of the bus. I've got 5 clearance lights. I have my left indicator, I have my right indicator. All of them are mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets that are all present and tight. My lenses are not cracked, broken, missing, and they are all amber in color. Next we have my high beams and my low beams, which are mounted and secured with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. The lenses themselves are not cracked, broken, or missing. They are clear in color. Next we have my my destination sign and my front driver's windshield. They are both mounted securely inside of their rubber trim. There is no cracks or breaks or any illegal stickers. Next we have the windshields, which are pressed firmly against, the windshield wipers, which are pressed firmly against the windshield. They are mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. The rubber themselves on the wipers are soft. They're not cut, torn, or otherwise damaged. Next we have the mirrors, which are mounted securely with nuts and bolts. The bracket itself cannot be cracked or bent. The mirrors as well are clean and clear, and they are not cracked or broken. Next we have the front bumper, which is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My front bumper is not missing, it's not leaning, and it's not otherwise damaged. Next we have the steering system. My steering shaft is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My steering shaft is not cracked, bent, broken, or cracked, bent, or broken. Next we have the steering gearbox, which is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My steering gearbox cannot be cracked, broken, or leaking. I have my pitman arm, which goes to my drag linkage. My drag linkage goes to my my steering knuckles. And it is the steering knuckles swivel that allow the front wheels to turn. My tie rod ends are mounted securely with castle nuts and cotter pins that are present and tight. The tie rod end is not cracked, bent, broken, or twisted. I have hoses for my steering that are mounted with fittings and clamps that are present and tight. My hoses do not have any abrasions, bulges, cuts, cracks, or leaks. On this side of the bus as well, which you cannot see here, but it will be there in real life, right here is a battery disconnect that you would pull down to disconnect the battery, pull it up to reconnect the battery. Here is a air tank bleed off. There will be 4 valves in there that you can open, and they will bleed the tanks. Next we have the front wheel assembly. We have splash guards and mud flaps, which there are none here, but there are in real life. They are mounted and secured with nuts and bolts. My splash guard and mud flaps are not cracked, torn, or otherwise damaged. They are not touching the ground or the tire. The tire itself is mounted securely right here. It has a tight seal around the rim. The tire tread has 4/32, no less, of tread depth, and the tread itself is not cut or has any holes, and it is evenly worn across. My sidewall has no abrasions or cuts. I have a valve stem that is mounted securely. It is not leaking or damaged in any other way. My tires are inflated to 110 psi, which is the recommended setting for these tires. Next I have my front rims, which are mounted securely with lug nuts and lug bolts, which are present and tight. They have no rust trails indicating looseness and no shining threads indicating cross-threading. My rim itself is not cracked or dented or has any illegal welds. And next up we have this center hub. The center hub is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My center hub is not cracked or leaking, and this one here does not have a sight glass, but if it did, we'd use that to check the fluid level and see if we needed to add more for the front axle. Next we have the brake system. The brake hoses are mounted securely with fittings and clamps that are present and tight. My brake hoses have no abrasions, bulges, cuts, cracks, or leaks. Next we have the brake chamber, which is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and C-clamps that are all, C-clips that are all present and tight. My brake chamber itself is not cracked, dented, or otherwise leaking. My brake chamber has a push rod inside of it that connects to the slack adjuster. The slack adjuster is mounted securely from the the push rod is mounted securely with pins and cotter pins that are present and tight. My push rod is not cracked, bent, broken, or missing. If I was to release the brakes, I'd be able to move my push rod no more than 1 inch. I should not be able to move my push rod any more than 1 inch. Next, we have the slack adjuster, which is mounted between the push rod and the S-cam shaft. It is mounted with nuts and bolts, pins and cotter pins that are all present and tight. My slack adjuster cannot be cracked, bent, broken, or missing. Next, we have the brake drum. It is mounted securely with lug nuts and lug bolts that are all present and tight. My brake drum cannot have any bluing from heat, and cannot have any cracks, dents, or holes. Next, we have the brake linings. They are mounted securely to the brake shoe using rivets that are present and tight. My brake linings cannot be cracked, broken, or otherwise damaged, and they can be no less than 1/4 inch thick. Next, we have my suspension components. My torque arm goes from my axle to my body. It is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and rubber grommets that are all present and tight. And my torque arm cannot be cracked, bent, broken, or twisted. Next, we have the airbag mounts, which are mounted securely, one with nuts and bolts. One is mounted to the body, one is mounted to the axle. They cannot be cracked, broken, or missing. Next, we have the airbags. They cannot be cracked, cut, or leaking. Next, we have the shock absorbers. They are mounted securely with nuts and bolts and rubber bushings that are all present and tight. My shock absorbers cannot be cracked, broken, or leaking. I believe that concludes everything on this front axle here. Next, we have the side of the bus. I have a clearance light here, and a clearance light that should be here, but it's not in this game. And then I have a reflector tape that will be right here. I also have 2 left indicators. These are all mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets that are all present and tight. My lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing. They are all amber in color. Next, we have my windows. All of them are mounted securely within their rubber trim, and they are not cracked, broken, or otherwise damaged. They are not cracked or broken or have any illegal stickers. Next, we have underneath the bus, we've got a frame rail that runs along the length of the bus. It is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My frame rail is not cracked, bent, has any broken welds, and is not twisted. We have cross members that go across lengthwise. Not lengthwise. They go across the frames. They are mounted securely. They are not cracked, broken, or missing. We have the drive shaft, which connects from the rear differential to the transmission. It is mounted securely with nuts and U-bolts that are present and tight. My drive shaft cannot be cracked, bent, broken, or twisted. And then that is the underside of the bus. Moving on to the rear tires, we have the splash guard and the mud flap, which are mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My splash guard and mud flap are not torn, broken, or otherwise damaged, and they are not touching the tires or the ground. My tires are mounted securely. The inside tire and the outside tire are mounted securely right here. They have a nice tight seal around the rim on both the inside and the outside. My tread depth is no less than 2/32 of an inch on the inside and the outside. My tire tread is worn evenly across on both the inside and the outside. I have no cuts or holes on the tread on the inside or the outside. My sidewall has no abrasions or cuts on the inside or the outside tire. I have 2 valve stems, one for the outside, one for the inside. Both are mounted securely. They are not damaged or leaking in any other way. The tires are mounted securely, the tires are inflated to 110 psi. Next we have the rims, which are mounted securely with lug nuts and lug bolts, which are present and tight. My rims are not cracked, bent, dented, or have any illegal welds. That's on the inside and the outside. My lug nuts and lug bolts are all present and tight. None of them have any rust trails or silver threads. The rust trails would indicate loose fittings. The shiny threads would indicate cross threading. My center hub is mounted again with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. And this one does not have a sight glass. If it did, we'd be able to check the fluid level of the axle to see if we needed to add more. Next we have the brake system, which the brake hoses are mounted securely with fittings and clamps that are present and tight. My hoses have no abrasions, bulges, cuts, cracks, or leaks. I have a brake chamber, which is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and C-clamp clips that are present and tight. My brake chamber is not cracked, dented, or otherwise leaking. And inside my brake chamber I have a push rod, which is mounted securely to the slack adjuster, and it is mounted with pins and cotter pins that are present and tight. My push rod has no cracks. It's not cracked, broken, or missing. Cracked, bent, broken, or missing. If I was to release the brakes again on the back, I would have no more than 1 inch of play, or I should have no more than 1 inch of play. My slack adjuster is mounted securely between the push rod and the S-cam shaft. It is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present in nuts and bolts, pins and cotter pins that are present and tight. My slack adjuster is not cracked, bent, broken, or twisted, or missing. Sorry, it's not missing. My brake drum is mounted securely with lug nuts and lug bolts, which are present and tight. My brake drum cannot be blue from overheating. It cannot be cracked, dented, or have any holes. My brake linings are mounted securely to the brake shoes with rivets that are present and tight. My brake linings cannot have any cracks, they cannot be broken, and they cannot be damaged in any other way. They are to be no less than 1/4 inch thick. Next we have the suspension. The suspension consists of the torque arm, which is mounted from the axle to the body, is mounted with nuts and bolts and rubber bushings that are present and tight. My my torque arm is not cracked, bent, broken, or twisted. Next we have the airbag mounts, which are mounted securely with nuts and bolts. The top one is mounted to the body, the bottom one is mounted to the axle. There is no cracks or breaks, and it is not missing. Next we have the airbags, which are not cut or cracked or leaking. We have the shock absorbers, which are mounted securely with nuts and bolts and rubber grommets that are rubber bushings that are present and tight. My shock absorber is not cracked, broken, or otherwise leaking. We have a red marker light here, and there would be a red reflective tape here, or reflective lens here, but in this game there is not one. They are both secured with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. My lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing. They are both red in color. We're now moving to the back. I have my tailpipe, which is mounted and secured with nuts and bolts and clamps and hangers that are all present and tight. I have no rust or soot buildup indicating leaks. Across the top, I've got 5 clearance lights. I also have 2 center lights, although here they're on the outside, they would be here in the middle. I have 2 brake lights and 2 tail lights. I also would have a reflective strip here and a reflective strip here. All are mounted and secured with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. My lenses are not cracked, broken, missing, or not cracked, broken, or missing. They are all red in color. Next, we have my left indicator and my right indicator that also serves as four-way flashers. They are mounted and secured with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. They are amber in color and they are not missing. They are not cracked, broken, or missing. Next, we got the reverse lights, also known as backup lights. They are mounted and secured with rubber grommets and screws that are present and tight. My lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing, and they are clear in color. I also have a tail light here that is mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. My lens is clear in color and it's not cracked, broken, or missing. Next, we have the engine bay. Over here would be the coolant reservoir. This is not an accurate depiction, but over here we would have a coolant reservoir that would be mounted and secured with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. I would have two sight glasses that I'd be able to check the fluid level in, or I could wait for the engine to cool off after shutting it down and take the radiator cap off and verify the fluid that way. This coolant reservoir cannot be cracked, broken, or leaking. Next, we have the exhaust system, which is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and clamps and hangers that are all present and tight. There is no rust or soot buildup indicating leaking. I would have my oil stick right around here. I would pull it out with the engine off. I would pull it out, wipe it off, put it back in, pull it out, and verify the fluid level for the oil that way. Next, I'm sorry, you say, would you like a demonstration? We're going to assume no. Next, we have the water pump, which is mounted secured with screws or nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My water pump is not cracked or leaking, and it is belt driven. I also have hoses that are the belt cannot move more than 3/4 of an inch. I also have hoses that are connected to the water pump. They are mounted securely with fittings and clamps that are present and tight. My hoses cannot have any cuts, bulges, or leaks. Next, we got the alternator, which would be up here. Again, not to one-to-one to scale. My alternator would be up here. It is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My alternator cannot be cracked or otherwise damaged, and my wires are connected securely and mounted properly. My alternator is also belt driven with no more than 3/4 of an inch of slack. Next, we have the air compressor, which is mounted right back here. It is mounted securely with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My air compressor has hoses that go to it. They are connected with fittings and clamps that are present and tight. My hoses do not have any cuts, bulges, or leaks. My air compressor cannot have any cracks or leaks in it. My air compressor is gear driven. Next, we have the power steering pump, which is mounted just at the rear of the air compressor. My power steering pump is mounted and secured with nuts and bolts that are present and tight. My power steering pump also has hoses that go to it. They are mounted securely with fittings and clamps that are present and tight. My power steering pump hoses do not have any cuts, bulges, or leaks. My power steering pump is not cracked or leaking, and it is also gear driven. Next, over here, assume I could open this. There would, right about in here, would be the power steering reservoir. It's mounted securely with nuts and bolts and a big clamp that goes around the bottom, and they are all present and tight. My power steering reservoir has a dipstick that I could loosen and take out to show the level of the power steering. My power steering reservoir cannot be cracked, broken, or leaking. My overall hoses are securely mounted with no cuts, bulges, or leaks. My overall wires are all mounted securely with no burns, frays, or breaks. on this side of the bus, we have a clearance light here and a clearance strip here. They are mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight, and they are the lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing, and they are red in color. Next, I have my bright indicators here and here that are mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets. These also serve as four-way flashers. The lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing, and they are amber in color. I have two walk lights, which would be here, that you can't see because this bus doesn't have them, and one up here. They are mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. The lenses are clear. They are not cracked, broken, or missing. My back doors are mounted with hangers that are present and tight. Or hinges, I'm sorry. They are mounted with hinges that are present and tight. My windows in my doors are not cracked or broken. They are clean and free of any illegal stickers that would cause obstructions. And my doors open smoothly, and there's a seal in the middle here that is secure. My front door, same as the back door, is mounted on hinges that are present and tight. My windows are not broken. They are clean and clear. They are not missing either. My doors open smoothly, and they have a seal in the middle that is present, and it is good. We have my windows, which are all mounted securely inside the rubber trim. I also have a destination window here. None of these windows have any cracks or broken. They have no illegal stickers either. They are all clean and clear. Next, we have my top clearance light, and there should be a ramp warning light here, but there's not one here. And there would be a middle clearance lens here as well. They are mounted securely with screws and rubber grommets that are present and tight. The lenses are not cracked, broken, or missing, and they are amber in color. That concludes the outside of the, oh wait, no. Over here is our fuel tank. It is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and straps that are all present and tight. My fuel cap is secured and present and tight. It's not cracked or leaking. My fuel tank is not cracked, broken, or leaking. Now that concludes the whole outside of